everyone, this is Castle of Castle Does, and I'm here to talk about some of the things that I've learned from working on Project Stray. And I have a list of about 5 things, one of which will be pretty much a rant. So it's 4 things in a rant about what I think is a really good direction for the marketplace, and what are the biggest challenges that I've run into so far with Project Stray. So with that said, uh, the first thing that I've run into recently is Destructibles, which are supposed to be a really huge part of Project Stray, because I want the level to explode and like come apart, and it looks really badass right now, but there's all kinds of problems that come along with the current Breakables. Okay, so for example, I added these destructible blocks right here. These function the way they're supposed to, but what I did, what I need them to do is to use the blueprints in order to actually behave exactly how I want them to. They have a very specific amount of health, and they break only when I want to issue a command to make them break. So what I did was I gave them a really high damage threshold, and then once their health value reaches 0 after you do enough damage to it, it does like a radial damage of its own that's above the damage threshold that only affects itself. It works fairly well. Oops, let my gun run out of time. However, what you get is no fucking replication at all. So like, I think this even happened a little different than I was expecting. Usually it crumbles, like you normally expect, but you see how like now I'm like in a wall. Okay, so that's a really big problem. The breakables are not working correctly, and I posted about it on the forums for under please update and fix destructibles, and did a whole bunch of random text talking about all this crap. And usually what it does is it like crumbles like this, but this causes problems because the player can get stuck up on these different things, and they have collision. So there's just all kinds of stuff that's just wrong, even though it's supposed to be a really big part of the game. Anyway, I don't want to get too caught up on the destructible part, but yeah, on Project Stray, I had to move it over to the future list because it's very possible that I'm not going to be doing what I really super want to do in the game, simply because it's just not supported, or it's broken, or the latest version. I have no idea what's wrong with it, but I have no way to customize the things that I need for Destructibles. I can't just make things break like they do in Battlefield. I can't I can't just have like shit take damage. It has to be like either this like really ridiculous, over the top, like collapsing and rubble coming down and players getting stuck on shit, or it doesn't work at all, and it doesn't replicate to clients. There's just okay. So anyway, it's a mess, and for now it's on the future list, and that makes me sad because it's supposed to be a really big part of this game. So you may know that one of the other really big hurdles working on this project is that at least while I started working on this, I didn't have any kind of a base to work for, like an options menu, which is a really big part of doing a game like this. And now I have all this stuff in place. I don't know why it's acting all weird like that. Now that I have all this stuff in place right now, I've noticed that someone has actually gone in and made a options menu blueprint that I'm gonna have to really check out, and I'll go into that in a second. But this hurdle right here was probably even more nasty than lacking the destructibles, because this just stopped me from being able to actually continue working on gameplay, and I ended up just trying to figure out how to get all these things hooked up, and in a lot of cases a lot of stuff isn't hooked up yet. So there wasn't any base support on this front, and so my list is what I think should go with the marketplace. the Unreal Marketplace right now. Okay, so what we have right now is it's a pretty good marketplace. There's a lot of really cool stuff going on, but I think it's missing one really important thing, and that is base, like core development elements, um, core elements for to make any game. So there are some things that are doing pretty well actually on this front, and there are people who are doing these some of them, but there's only two. And if you look at the rest of these things, it's like a gray boxing kit and character attribute system. These things are cool. They're fine, but they don't need to be in the same category as persistent graphics menu. Now, you see, this would have saved me a buttload of time easily if it had come out a couple of months ago. I think it came out like on April 9th. This is exactly the kind of thing we need to see, and it doesn't need it needs to have its own category. I really think that in the marketplace there should be, like, instead of just blueprints, because it shouldn't be limited to blueprints. It's irrelevant. It's a customizable interface for something that's extremely important that always pops up in game development, and that is options menus, multiplayer chat system. This was out earlier, but I haven't been concerned with a multiplayer chat system yet. However, my game definitely needs one. My only concern or worry with these things, I mean, it's only $10. This is perfect. This is super ideal stuff. There needs to be more of this. In fact, there needs to be things like customizable splash screens, customizable server browsers, stuff like that. Sell them for $30. I would have fucking jumped on this shit and put money down on all of them. There needs to be a variety of them too. Different people make different ones. Some of them have pluses and minuses. We should have ways to decide on that, and they should be treated specially. They shouldn't just be lumped in with blueprints, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing things like this in C++. It doesn't have to be. These things can be customizable and totally do their job as C++. In fact, it may even be better. Somebody take your development skills and sit back and make splash screens, server browsers, fucking like any of those kinds of really core elements that every game's going to have. And next, currently right now, I have to say that the ability to package Project Stray has been fantastic. But the biggest weakness on this front, and I realize that this is technical stuff, and there's all kinds of technical hurdles to come by, but the ability to, when I packaged my game, have a dedicated server checkbox or something here, like build configuration, be like include a dedicated server option. Right now I have to do some crazy shit involving setting up a Linux executable, or I don't even know. I have to download a file that's not even properly described. It's a total nightmare. But I'm sure, to someone who's used to using Linux and things like that, but that includes also being able to have like a Windows dedicated server as well. These things are super important. Multiplayer game, any multiplayer game worth its salt that's going to be sold anywhere should have freaking dedicated servers. So this is the second biggest weakness of Unreal's development at this point in time, is that dedicated servers are somehow a hurdle that requires additional attention that really it should just be built right in. Like, it should just be part of it. Just give me an executable. It does it. Okay, so I mean, out of all those things, I'd have to say, like, okay, you have breakables, or destructibles are not functioning correctly in multiplayer. They function fine single player. If you want to use them, they're actually working just fine. Although they still incur these like weird collision errors, and you're going to still have to deal with rubble crumbling and all that, and it's not really very configurable, and it's a little clunky that I have this and this that I have to work with, because like the blueprint itself has all of this stuff, and the only way that I was able to issue a command to make the destructible component actually break is to apply a radius damage of base damage 2000, and then make sure that the block itself has a damage threshold of 1000, which the player can never actually do, because I want to be able to make it so that the blueprint determines when the block is destroyed based on a health value that I assign to it. And then I'm going to have all of the other things derive off of this base blueprint for breakables. And then the reason why I'm doing that is because I need to be able to respawn these things whenever they actually do break. So under the condition of whenever one of these things has a 0 health, it will actually spawn another one in its place and destroy the old one. This currently crashes the editor, crashes the game. I haven't exactly figured out why it was working before, but I'm pretty sure if you destroy the actor and then spawn something afterwards, that probably is the problem, but it doesn't seem to be working either way. Like, I can reverse this. But anyway, that's not the point. So if this just had a, destroy command that I could do on the component menu, that would be pretty cool. So with that said, really, there's just limitations as far as, like, not so much limitations on the marketplace, but just the way the marketplace is being thought about. And I think that this comes down to my last point, which is the rant part. I guess I'm probably ranting anyway, but the rant part of this is that that there's also another way to think about these example games that I think would be even more beneficial, and it's probably something that I want to try to experiment with, just for the heck of it. But at first, it's going to sound a little weird, because you're gonna wonder, what are the legalities of this? But I think that these blueprint example games, there should be a number of them that are simply clones of other games that are not illegal. In other words, you can clone the gameplay of existing games and say it's inspired by it. So I can have a Zelda clone that isn't actually a full game, but has all of the functionality gameplay wise of a specific Zelda or Halo or Bloodborne or whatever. It's the gameplay is there, and then you have to buy, like, the graphics menu that you prefer and the splash screen that you prefer and all of that, and just going to, like, throw it together. Now you have this game that it lacks the graphics and the sound, but is as functionally identical to the game that it's duplicating as possible. So, like, somebody can come to this and be like, hey, you know what? I really, 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 really like Bloodborne. So I want to work on a stupid, side project and just mess around with a game that has a couple of bad guys in it, that duplicates the gameplay. The character looks like a fucking a block, or this blue dude or the blue guy or whatever, but is not actually, but it copies the gameplay right down. You got the potions and everything. People are excellent. People are really excellent at duplicating things that already exist, because one of the hardest things to do as a game designer is to come up with new ideas and things that you feel are new, like things that you feel that can work but are also new. So duplicating an existing game, as an example, gives everybody this really excellent starting point. So it could be all kinds of stuff. We are seeing a huge flux of cutting-edge dev tools that are available to everyone. It's going to cause waves no matter what. Think about it. But if we work together, we can push this shit to a new level. Things are not going fast enough. I want to see this shit really hit the fan. I mean, come on. I want to see rock-solid foundation where anyone can buy an example clone of a popular game and use it as a starting base to make something new, or just fucking clone the game in their own spare time and and have fun with it. Now remember, just the gameplay itself, not the likeness. You don't copy the likeness. You can't use any of the graphics or the sound or anything like that. Just the gameplay. I need to stress this because a lot of people will hear what I'm saying and they'll immediately jump. Oh, you're talking about you're gonna get in trouble legally for copying people's stuff. No, you can't copyright gameplay. You can't. You cannot. Okay, anybody can take a fucking map that you made and take and remake it a layout for any game that they feel like doing it to. There's nothing you can do about it. There's no legal recourse that you can take to stop that. It's true for gameplay. Think about the recent Mario 64 clone that was made in Unity, and Nintendo is freaking out about it right now. If you can replicate fucking Mario 64 in Unity, why the fuck don't you just change the graphics and make it a new game that was inspired by Mario 64? I mean, hell, it's got multiplayer and shit. It's like it's not even. It's really fucking cool. I mean, just look. I mean, even easier would be to rip the graphics out and just sell it. Sell that shit as an example game platformer inspired by Mario 64. You can anyone can do whatever they want with it. I mean, that right there is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, can you imagine being able to go on the marketplace and your favorite game that you wanna you're currently playing right now, and just drop 30 or 40 bucks, and you get the clone that has just gameplay and maybe one example map, and you can actually kind of fuck around with the game that you're enjoying right now, and you can kind of learn from it. But these kinds of examples aren't just fantastic for they're not just fantastic for people to have a starting base. They're also really great to learn. You can copy somebody else's idea much more easily, and you end up learning all kinds of stuff by doing it that way anyway. But anyway, I might be pushing this point a little bit too hard. It's just something that I would really like to see is more complete examples, like the FPS example that you can download and stuff like that. These are okay, but how about something that's already proven and fun that I can download and is pretty much functionally identical to something that's already popular? Not only now are you working with a marketplace and people recognize it immediately. Oh shit, this is like a Halo likeness, or a Halo type gameplay clone that allows me to make a map and experience playing something like that, and I can now duplicate that game even easier, because I know everybody already knows how these games work and with their different weapons and things like that. There's a lot of games out there that are really popular that are easy to clone, that don't even need, when you clone them for this kind of a thing, you don't even need to finish it. You just need to have all of the core elements. The more finished it is, the better, obviously, but you only need like one map, maybe one boss fight. You only need one multiplayer map. Like, these examples can be more fleshed out by copying ideas that are already recognizable. I mean, tell me if you've ever experienced this before, where you're like, one Friday night, you just suddenly get a craving to work on a Metroidvania game, just for shits and giggles. Not only that, but it's a replica of Super fucking Metroid. Like, here it is. It's only like a tiny portion of the map, but it has pretty much all of the same stuff, all the items, and some of the creatures' behavior are replicated fairly well, and it's a starting point from which case just about anyone can easily make a fucking Super Metroid clone with their own gameplay and add new guns, or change their jumping, and or make a new game from it. Like, hey, it's a Metroidvania with crafting, and you add like a crafting thing to it or something. So, like, right there, everybody already knows what Super fucking Metroid is, right? Well, here it is, and it immediately grasps people's ideas. You're more likely to sell this on the marketplace. It'll definitely, because people will already recognize, because these are already popular IPs and things like that. Um, there you go. I mean, the worst that can happen is that there's some kind of legality, like you mentioned that it's a Metroid clone. It might that could probably cause problem. But if you just say like, "Hey, this is inspired by," it probably is just fine. And I guess with all that said, the final point, the very final thing to mention about this is that the cool side effect of this is that artists will have direction when they make their assets. So like, say if there's a whole bunch of these like more complete, let's just say more complete example games that you can blueprint example games or even C++ example games. Um, when an artist decides that, hey, I don't quite know what kind of assets I want to make. Well, if there's already like a whole bunch of these really popular things and like people who are in the marketplace can look at these and go, "Oh, this one's really popular," or "This one isn't," they can actually decide to make assets for it. See, like a lot of these things that are here are not really far enough along, and it doesn't really make any sense. Like his spell casting system. I mean, these are things that you should be able to just do anyway. I mean, if you some of them are too vague, some of them are just very, very, very specific little things. They're cool. These are good things, but a more complete game, and you'll see artists actually just, you know what? I'm gonna take this Metal Slug clone, and I'm going to go in and make a whole bunch of really badass pixel art and sell it on the marketplace and see if people actually pick it up. And there you go. So you provide this like you provide a much better environment, and it's something that I'm interested in. I would like to see the marketplace actually have like gameplay examples of existing games, not just not just like a top-down toolkit or a spellcasting system, but here's Zelda, A Link to the Past. The graphics don't look the same. In fact, the graphics are probably as simplistic as possible, but but gameplay wise, here's the bombs, the boomerang, the fucking swords, the all that shit's in there. Can you imagine the animations of the character? The sprite doesn't look the same. The sprite is just like a placeholder thing. It probably is meant to be as simple as possible. You have to come up with your own art, but it plays exactly like that. It has that same feel. That's awesome. That would be a really cool thing to see. It gives everybody direction. People have like really fantastic ideas of games that they already played, and they know. Okay, so I think at this point I'm pretty much done with my point. So I hope you enjoyed, and I hope this feedback is good, and I want to hear what you have to think about this as well, because I know a lot of people are going to be like, copying stuff is illegal. I'm not talking about that. So I know I have to keep stressing it over and over again whenever I mention that. It's like I'm not talking about copying a game and selling it. I'm talking about copying the gameplay and selling it. There's a very distinct difference there. Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for more.